We live in a world where so many of us are caught in a subtle yet devastating trap. The days pass, the years slip by, and somewhere deep inside, we sense that something is wrong. It's not just the dissatisfaction with our circumstances, nor is it merely the frustration with external obstacles. It's the horrifying realization that time, our most precious resource, is being wasted. And worse, we often don't even know how or why it's happening. Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, understood this dilemma deeply. He didn't offer cheap solutions or soothing platitudes. Instead, he challenged us with truths that are hard to swallow but transformative if we have the courage to accept them. The first question we need to confront is this: why do we waste our lives in the first place? Jung recognized that much of the suffering we endure stems from our refusal to face reality. What is reality? It's this: life is hard. Struggle is not an exception, it is the rule. And yet, many of us live as though the purpose of life is to avoid suffering, to seek comfort, to escape difficulty at all costs. But here's the paradox in running from difficulty: we run from the very things that give life meaning. Can you see how this works in your own life? We avoid challenges because they are uncomfortable, but in doing so, we rob ourselves of the chance to grow. We avoid pain, but in doing so, we also avoid the transformation that pain can bring. Jung believed that suffering is not merely something to endure, but something to learn from. He once wrote that man needs difficulty, they are necessary for health. Imagine that our struggles are not obstacles to a good life, they are the very foundation of it. Without them, we stagnate. Without them, we become hollow.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Yet, so many of us spend our lives trying to eliminate difficulty entirely. We dream of an easy life, a life free from suffering. But let me ask you this: if you woke up tomorrow and all your problems were gone, what would you do? Would you suddenly feel fulfilled? Or would you find yourself lost, aimless, and disoriented? The truth is, we don't just need difficulty, we need the right kind of difficulty. Jung understood that while suffering is inevitable, it can become destructive if it is excessive or meaningless. The challenge is to confront the suffering that has purpose, the kind that pushes us to become stronger, wiser, and more capable. But this requires a shift in mindset. It requires us to stop seeing life as something that should be easy and instead embrace the fact that nothing worth achieving ever comes without effort. This brings us to a critical point: what kind of effort are you making with your life? Are you expending your energy on things that truly matter, or are you caught up in distractions? Jung warned us about the dangers of living in a way that is disconnected from our deeper selves. He believed that most of our problems, our anxieties, our depressions, our feelings of emptiness stem from living inauthentic lives. And what does it mean to live authentically? It means to live in alignment with your true potential, to pursue the things that make you feel alive, even if they are difficult or frightening. But here's the catch: you cannot unlock your potential without first accepting a hard truth about yourself. Jung called this the process of confronting the shadow. The shadow is the part of yourself that you deny, repress, or ignore the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you find shameful or unacceptable. Most of us spend our lives running from our shadows. We distract ourselves with work, entertainment, or superficial relationships, all in an effort to avoid looking at the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. But as Jung said, anything conscious can be corrected, but anything that slips away into the unconscious is beyond the reach of correction. In other words, the more you avoid your shadow, the more power it has over you. So the first step in stopping the waste of your life is to stop running from difficulty, from discomfort, and most importantly, from yourself. Ask yourself, what are you avoiding right now? Is it a difficult conversation? A painful memory? A truth about yourself that you don't want to face? Whatever it is, know this: avoiding it will not make it go away. In fact, it will only grow stronger in the darkness of your unconscious. And yet, facing your shadow is not just about acknowledging your weaknesses or flaws. It's also about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you have lost. Sometimes we repress our greatest strengths because we have been made to believe they are wrong or unacceptable. For example, maybe you were taught as a child that expressing anger is bad, so now you suppress your ability to stand up for yourself. Or maybe you were told that creativity is impractical, so you buried your artistic talents. Over time, these suppressed parts of yourself become part of your shadow, and you lose access to the very qualities that could make your life meaningful. If you want to stop wasting your life, you must confront your shadow, not just to tame your weaknesses, but to rediscover your strengths. This is not an easy process, and it won't happen overnight. It requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But the reward is freedom, the freedom to live as your true self, not as a fragmented version of who you are supposed to be. So I ask you again, what are you avoiding? What part of yourself have you buried? And what would your life look like if you had the courage to bring these things into the light? When you begin to face these questions, you will also begin to see the ways in which your life has been wasted, not in a way that leads to regret, but in a way that inspires change. You will realize that every moment you spend avoiding your shadow is a moment you could be using to unlock your potential. And you will see that the only way to live a meaningful life is to embrace the struggles that come with it. If we are to stop wasting our lives, we must confront another deeply ingrained habit: our fixation on the past. How often do you find yourself dwelling on what has already happened, replaying old memories, or trying to understand why you are the way you are? For many of us, the past feels like a puzzle, and we convince ourselves that if we can just piece it together, we'll finally find clarity. But Carl Jung warns us against this seductive trap. He believed that an excessive focus on the past can paralyze us, keeping us stuck in a cycle of blame, regret, and avoidance. Here's a brutal truth. The past is over. It cannot be changed, no matter how much time you spend analyzing it, reliving it, or trying to make sense of it. And yet, we cling to it as though it holds the key to our liberation. Jung believed this obsession with the past is often a defense mechanism, a way of avoiding the hard work of living fully in the present. Instead of asking, "What must I do right now to move forward?" we ask, "Why did this happen?" Or worse, "Who is to blame?" These questions may feel important, but they rarely lead to progress. They keep us tethered to what was rather than what is. Let me ask you this: how much of your mental energy is spent rehashing old wounds, regretting missed opportunities, or blaming others for your current circumstances? Be honest. Now consider this: what would happen if you redirected that energy toward the present moment? What could you accomplish if, instead of looking backward, you focused entirely on the here and now? Jung understood that the present is where all change happens. Your potential is not buried in your past. It is waiting to be unlocked in this very moment. Yet many of us avoid the present because it is difficult. The present demands action, responsibility, and courage. The past, on the other hand, is safe. It is static. It cannot hurt us any more than it already has. And so we retreat into it, hoping to find answers where none exist. But here's the irony: the answers we seek are not behind us. They are right in front of us, waiting for us to open our eyes and take the first step forward. Jung also believed that our fixation on the past is often tied to our avoidance of responsibility. It is easier to blame our childhood, our parents, or our circumstances than it is to take ownership of our lives. But this blame, while comforting in the short term, is a poison that eats away at our potential. As Jung wrote, people should know that not only the neurotic, But everyone naturally prefers never to seek the causes of any inconvenience in himself, but to push them as far away from himself as possible in space and time. In other words, we are all tempted to externalize our problems, to look for causes outside ourselves. But this approach only deepens our suffering. If you want to stop wasting your life, you must stop blaming the past. This doesn't mean denying that the past has shaped you or that it has caused you pain. It simply means refusing to let it define you. You are not your past. You are not the mistakes you've made, the traumas you've endured, or the opportunities you've missed. These things may influence you, but they do not control you. The only thing that controls you is the choice you make right now. But here's the question: are you willing to make that choice? Are you willing to stop seeking excuses in your past and start seeking solutions in your present? This is not an easy shift to make. It requires humility, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But it is the only way to move forward. Imagine this: you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads backward, into the endless maze of your past. It is familiar, but it is also a dead end. The other path leads forward, into the unknown. It is uncertain, and it demands courage, but it is the only path that offers growth. Which path will you choose? Jung also emphasized that the present is where we discover meaning. Many of us believe that meaning is something we must find, as though it were a hidden treasure buried in our past or waiting for us in the future. But this is a mistake. Meaning is not something you find, it is something you create moment by moment through your actions, choices, and commitments. Consider this: what are you doing right now to create meaning in your life? Are your actions aligned with your deepest values, or are you simply going through the motions, hoping that meaning will somehow find you? This is a hard question to answer honestly, but it is also one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Jung believed that one of the greatest sources of meaning is responsibility. To take responsibility for your life is to declare that your existence matters, that your actions have significance, and that you are willing to bear the weight of your own potential. This is not an easy path. It requires you to confront your fears, your insecurities, and your limitations. But it is also the only path that leads to a life worth living. Responsibility is not just about fulfilling obligations or meeting expectations. It is about recognizing that you are an active participant in the unfolding of your own life. You are not a passive victim of circumstance. You are a creator, capable of shaping your destiny through your choices. And yet, so many of us avoid responsibility because it feels overwhelming. We tell ourselves that we are not ready, that we need more time, that we will act once we feel more confident or more prepared. But the truth is, there is no perfect moment to take responsibility. There is only one now. So let me ask you this: what responsibility are you avoiding? What would it look like to take ownership of your life? Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now. This is the essence of living in the present. It is not about ignoring the past or denying the future. It is about recognizing that the only moment you have is this one, and that this moment is enough. Jung also warned us about the danger of projecting our problems into the future. Just as we waste our lives by dwelling on the past, we also waste them by obsessing over what might happen. We worry about things that haven't occurred, we fear outcomes that may never come to pass, and we postpone action, waiting for the right time that never arrives. This constant projection into the future is a form of avoidance, a way of escaping the discomfort of the present. But in doing so, we rob ourselves of the only opportunity we have to make a difference. Ask yourself this: how much of your time is spent worrying about the future? How often do you delay action because you are waiting for the perfect moment? And what would your life look like if you stopped waiting and started acting? The present moment is not always easy, but it is always enough. It is where your potential lives, where your shadow waits to be confronted, and where your life begins to take shape. To embrace the present is to embrace reality with all its struggles, uncertainties, and possibilities. It is to say, I am here, and I am ready to face whatever comes, but are you truly ready? Or are you still clinging to the illusion that the answers lie in your past or your future? This is the question that each of us must answer for ourselves. And the answer we give will determine whether we continue to waste our lives or whether we begin to unlock our true potential. If we are to stop wasting our lives and unlock our true potential, we must confront the final, most challenging piece of the puzzle, the search for meaning. Without meaning, life feels hollow, no matter how much we achieve or accumulate. Without meaning, even the most comfortable existence becomes unbearable. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He saw that many of our deepest anxieties, depressions, and feelings of emptiness come from one simple but devastating truth: we don't know why we are here. And so we distract ourselves. We chase after careers, relationships, money, status, or fleeting pleasures, hoping they will fill the void. But the void remains. No amount of external success can satisfy a soul that is starving for meaning. Jung believed that the search for meaning is not a luxury or a philosophical pastime, it is a necessity. Without it, we lose our way. Without it, we lose ourselves. But here's the hard truth: meaning cannot be handed to you. It cannot be bought, borrowed, or stolen. It cannot be found in someone else's approval or in the expectations of society. Meaning is something you must create for yourself through your own choices, actions, and commitments. And this is where so many of us falter. We wait for meaning to find us, as though it were a gift from the outside world. But meaning is not given, it is made, and making it requires courage. What does it mean to live a meaningful life? For Jung, it meant living authentically. To live authentically is to align your actions with your deepest values, to pursue the things that truly matter to you, even if they are difficult or unconventional. It means taking responsibility for your own life, rather than following the script that others have written for you. But living authentically is not easy. It requires you to confront your fears, challenge your assumptions, and risk rejection or failure. It requires you to ask yourself the hardest question of all: are you living the life you truly want, or are you living the life you think you should want? Take a moment to reflect on this. Are you truly living according to your own values, or are you chasing goals that were imposed on you by your family, your culture, or your social circle? Are you pursuing what makes you feel alive, or are you simply trying to meet the expectations of others? These are not comfortable questions, but they are necessary ones. Because until you answer them honestly, you cannot begin to live authentically. Jung believed that a meaningful life is not necessarily an easy life. In fact, it is often the opposite. Living authentically means making choices that others may not understand or approve of. It means taking risks, stepping into the unknown, and facing the possibility of failure. But it also means living with a sense of purpose, knowing that your life is your own, and that what you do matters. One of the most powerful examples Jung gave of a meaningful life came from his encounter with the Pueblo tribe. He observed that these people, who lived far removed from the complexities of modern society, were not plagued by the same neuroses, anxieties, and depressions that afflict so many of us in the modern world. Why? Because their lives were rich with meaning. They saw themselves as participants in a divine drama, fulfilling their role in the greater order of existence. Every day they performed rituals that connected them to something larger than themselves, and this gave their lives a profound sense of purpose. Contrast this with the modern individual, who often feels disconnected, aimless, and adrift. We have more freedom than ever before, but with that freedom comes a crushing sense of responsibility. Without a dominant mythology or shared sense of purpose, we are left to create our own meaning. And while this is a tremendous opportunity, it is also a tremendous burden. Many of us are overwhelmed by the weight of this task, and so we avoid it. We distract ourselves with busyness, consumerism, or surface-level pleasures, hoping these things will fill the void, but they never do. Here's the question we must confront: what role are you playing in the divine drama of life? Are you actively participating, or are you merely a spectator? Are you creating meaning, or are you waiting for it to be handed to you? And if you are waiting, how much longer are you willing to wait? Jung believed that each of us has a unique role to play, a unique potential to fulfill. But discovering that role requires us to look inward, to listen to the quiet voice of our soul that is so often drowned out by the noise of the world. What is that voice telling you? What is it urging you to do? Perhaps it is calling you to create, to serve, to build, to explore, or to love. Whatever it is your responsibility to listen and to act. But here's the catch: living a meaningful life often requires sacrifice. It means letting go of the things that distract you, the things that keep you comfortable but unfulfilled. It means saying no to what is easy so you can say yes to what is essential. This is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice. Every day, you must choose between the life you are living and the life you are capable of living. Every day, you must decide whether to settle for comfort or to strive for meaning. And yet, the rewards of this choice are profound. When you live authentically, you stop wasting your life. You stop chasing things that don't matter and start pursuing the things that do. You stop living for others and start living for yourself. And most importantly, you stop running from the question of meaning and start answering it through your actions, your commitments, and your willingness to take responsibility for your own existence. Let me ask you one final question. If you were to die tomorrow, could you say that your life meant something? Could you say that you lived fully, that you faced your fears, that you pursue your potential with everything you had? Or would you look back with regret, knowing that you wasted your time on things that didn't matter? This is not a question to scare you or to make you feel guilty. It is a question to wake you up, because the truth is, none of us know how much time we have left. The only thing we know for certain is that our time is limited, and that once it's gone, we can never get it back. So the choice is yours: will you continue to waste your life, or will you start living it? Jung's message is clear: if you want to unlock your true potential, you must stop running from yourself. You must face your shadow, embrace the present, and take responsibility for creating meaning in your life. This is not an easy path, but it is the only path that leads to a life worth living. And as Jung reminds us, we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning, for what was great in the morning will be little in the evening, and what in the morning was true will in the evening have become a lie. The time to act is now. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Because the longer you wait, the more life slips through your fingers. So what will you do with the time you have left? Will you squander it, or will you use it to become the person you were meant to be? The choice is yours. And the time to choose is now.